This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and the Northern Territory, Australia, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. They steward 16 million acres of rangeland, guided by the natural ecosystem where cattle graze and forage on native grasses for the first few years of their lives. The result is high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia. Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I think we've kind of lost sight of almost our animal nature of like being in touch with the earth and being in touch with food and the pleasure of food and the respect of food.
Hello there, it is Dani Valent with you for another episode of Dirty Linen, and I am super grateful for your time and attention. And I'm also really excited about today's conversation with Shakti Em Iyer. Shakti is the co-owner with her husband Daniel of Nevedya, a really interesting cafe on the edge of the Dandenongs outside of Melbourne. As soon as I walked into Nevedya, I knew that I was somewhere that was doing things a little bit differently. There is a warm-hearted intention throughout the place that it's impossible not to experience and be enveloped by as soon as you walk in. I'm really looking forward to learning from Shakti how she and her team bring this vision to life. So Shakti, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you, Dani. Thank you for such a beautiful introduction and also recognising all of that in our business. It's a real honour to hear.
Oh, well, thank you. I suppose my first question to myself whenever I enter any kind of food business is, what is it that they're trying to do? Like, what are they trying to be? How are they trying to express themselves? And do they succeed on their own terms? Those are my leading questions. And, it was really easy for me to appreciate instantly that you were doing things differently. You could smell incense. There was, in a world of, blonde timber and polished concrete, you had, carved timber tables, and you were selling smudge sticks and crystals. It had a really different vibe. Also, you walk through the front door and you can see the kitchen straight away, and there was a feeling of calmness, which I would say isn't something you always notice first in a kitchen. But anyway, this is just me and my impressions. Tell me about Nevedya from your point of view.
That is all what we wanted to create, definitely. Like, we wanted to create a soul-based business that nourishes and brings people back to themselves. And that is the intention behind it, as well as it being an intention to respect the planet, to treat the planet well, to be sustainable in all of what we offer, and to treat our staff well. And probably almost the thing that's come last, but is also very much part of the intention, is to treat ourselves well, myself and Daniel, and to live a balanced life. So that's what we set out to create. And I think all of our history as people, my history, Daniel's history as people, as well as how I was introduced to food, which was through a spiritual lens, made that deeply resonant. And probably also growing up as vegetarians with slightly alternative parents, both of us then asks questions like, what do we consume and how do we support the earth in what we consume? And they're all really important things that we wanted to bring into our business and for people to experience. And it's quite a miraculous thing that is sometimes slightly mysterious to me how it all comes to be. And often people have given the feedback that they just feel the intention, like you're saying that right now. They feel the intentionality of what we're doing. They feel that they come back to themselves. They feel so nourished. And in a way, it's a little miraculous that that happens, because it almost feels quite simple in some senses to create that.
Whoa, there's so much in what you've just said, and I'm just like, my mind is spinning around trying to work out which little nugget to dig into more. But I think let's talk about this idea of growing up with food through a spiritual lens, because I think often when I speak to people about food, in the end, you get to something that's quite spiritual, or definitely spiritual adjacent. It's like when we really work out what food means to people, it is, it's holistic, it's everything, but not everyone probably starts from that point. So yeah, tell us a bit about your background, Shakti.
First of all, that is such an interesting question, isn't it, Dani, that you pose there, and topic that you pose of like, what is food to people? And there's just so much in that we could probably go on for hours. That's fascinating, but not going on for hours there just yet. You were saying, like, what was it like growing up with like food as a kind of spiritual aspect? Yeah, I got lost in your other question.
Well, that's it. Let's just go back to that. Like, tell me about growing up with food with a spiritual lens.
Okay. So we'll jump around a little bit. When I was 22, I went overseas and I lived in an ashram for 6 years, and I got put in the kitchens and started cooking. And I'd always loved cooking, and I really fell in love with it, cooking there. I worked with some amazing chefs, and they kind of taught me how to season and how to craft food and become skilled. And that was just awesome. I loved it, and I still love that so much. And I just loved that there is never an end to learning as a chef, that there is cuisines that I still just haven't touched. And that's just, I think, wow, I can do this for the rest of my life. How exciting is that? But the cooking in an ashram, it focuses on, and I guess also growing up with a spiritual foundation that was an Indian-based spiritual foundation, there's a reverence for food, a deep reverence for food. And I think that reverence for food comes from the culture of India to an extent, and the fact that there is such a scarcity of food in India, and that food is life, and you never would disrespect or devalue food, because without food you starve, and we just don't have this paradigm in the West. But in India, that is the case. So there, you always say food, you always respect food, you always have this reverence for it, and that reverence is gratitude. So I was kind of taught to cook in this way, with really a reverence for food, and offering food up to kind of a higher energy before consuming it ourselves. And then that really led into where I stand today, which is like, as we do with our beliefs, that there's metamorphosed again, where it is then this deep respect for Mother Earth, and taking food and seeing the beauty in it, but also having respect for the process of how food's grown and the whole journey of food. So we use organic food, basically only, and organic veggies, and to know that everybody along the way of growing those veggies has enjoyed the process of growing it. It has been done in kind of a good relationship to respect the earth. And then that comes to us, and then we get these beautiful sprouting purple broccolis that we're working with right now, that they just change in colour each week a little bit, and the intricacy of the patterns in it. And then you get that broccoli and you're just awed by it for a minute, and you just, wow, isn't this incredible? And then you prep it and you cook it with this deep respect of the food, and you offer it to the customers almost like a mother would offer food to a child, that you want it to really nourish and sustain them and be clear and be really good for their bodies. And so that whole cycle from growing the food to cooking it to giving it to the customer is done intentionally with gratitude and respect. And I think that is the essence of how I cook and how the kitchen at Nevedya cooks. And it's actually what Nevedya means. Nevedya means, it's a Sanskrit word that means, if we loosely translated it, sacred offering. So that is behind it all.
So there is all that, and that is really powerful, and I reckon I could definitely feel that, and the awe when you look at a beautiful piece of broccoli. Yeah, I totally can relate to that as well. And yet you are running a business in Melbourne, in Australia. Like, it's embedded in capitalism and, you know, the economic crisis that many people are really feeling the bite of right now. How do you maintain and foster and nourish your values when you're also running a business?
It's an excellent question. Give me a second. I think it's always a dance between this yin and yang. And I think even in the beginning, maybe we had a bit more yin, and then we realized we need a little bit more yang to actually respect the business and make sure that it's strong and sustainable. So I think that there's these two aspects that are separate but are entirely connected, where to start with, I think that basically this intention is pretty uncompromisable for me and Daniel, that if we let go of that, we would lose our joy in what we do, and we would be betraying ourselves on some level, and it just wouldn't work. So it's like there isn't a question to let go of that, or that we could let go of that. But then there's also this sense that we have this beautiful business, and if we're not business smart, we won't have a beautiful business. So we've learnt through the process of running a business to be more business smart as well. And like something that Daniel recently did was he actually costed out our dishes really thoroughly. And that was an amazing thing to do, to have all that information. So to kind of like, you know, use those more traditional forms of business to know that. But I think we're also really lucky because we are a bit of a niche, and the people that come to us want that, what we offer. And so, like, right now we've got a bit of an olive oil crisis situation in the world, where the price of olive oil is just going up astronomically. And our price of olive oil every time we order is significantly higher than last time we ordered it. And so we tried for a minute to cook one of our main things, the dosa, in like an organic sunflower oil, and the flavour just was no good. And we're like, we just can't do this. And then we kind of communicated that with our community through social media, and they want that. So I think that we had a very clear ideology when we set out, and that attracted a client base that really looks for that. And then they want that. They want the quality through the smaller details and they want us not to compromise, and then you're just smart. And if your olive oil goes up and you need to raise the price of your dish by 20 cents, you raise your price of your dish by 20 cents. But actually people want that, is what we've experienced.
That's so interesting. It's really interesting for me to hear about you speaking as the business almost as this thing that needs its well-being as well. Like, it's not like you're in opposition to it, but it's part of it's what you're looking after, just as you're looking after yourselves or your ingredients.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that of the business. I feel that she is an entity, really, and there's a three-way relationship at the nexus of it, me, Daniel, and the business. And then there's a bigger circle around that with our staff, and then a bigger circle around that with our community.
Interesting. And definitely your staff, that's a topic I wanted to touch on. I thought it was really striking. You've got this beautiful garden with sort of a wending path, and there's a table where people can sit on cushions. There's sort of this teepee structure, a little babbling brook, and some garden beds. But there's also this little hut for where your staff can go when they're on break. Tell me about that.
So it's a multi-purpose. It's a music hut as well. So we do live music often. Like right now, we're doing live music events once a month, and that turns into a DJ hut, live music hut. But the rest of the time, it's an open space that is one of the few spots in winter where you get sun and solitude. So yeah, staff often go up there. And we also have a beautiful little room out tucked around kind of the back behind the cool room that's got some couches in it, and that's like the staff room as well. And our dog actually hangs out there all day while we work as well. So you can go hang out with our dog and take your pick, really.
What's your approach to looking after your staff?
Oh, it's so important. So first of all, it's about, well, maybe let's not say first of all, because it's all connected and it's not really a hierarchical list, but the approach to looking after our staff is paying them well, always respecting that pay rate and paying them, like not underpaying them, paying them at the minimum wage. We would love to pay more, but it's not a high profit industry, so we kind of, to be competitive, need to stay at that. But paying them well, giving them proper breaks, always feeding them. Like staff get a little snack break before we go into the lunch rush, and then they get a lunch break after that on shift, and they get drinks, and they never pay for their food. And we feel very passionate that it's like, if they're selling the food, they need to eat it. And if we're here to nourish people, they need to be nourished as well. So it's that. But it's also respecting them as whole, complex, amazing human beings, and not thinking that we are one face every day of the week and we can just always perform exactly the same, that we are nuanced and complex. And I guess holding respect and love for those nuances that we are, and letting us all be who we are, like letting us be neurodiverse, or all the many different things that are humans. And then there's a comfort and an ease that I think that allows our staff to be in, that creates a genuine space and a space of genuine human connection, and really a family. Like, I feel that our staff are family, and that we all are a family, and there's so much love there. Yeah.
You mentioned when at the start of our conversation, Shakti, about how you and Daniel have realised you need to look after yourselves as well. How do you do that?
That was really fun, because before we started the business, we wrote an intention statement for our business, and then each year we would review that. And I think maybe 3 or 4 years in, we were like, like each year it was like, yes, we're doing that. Yes, we're doing that. Like, yes. And then maybe 3 or 4 years in, we were like, we're probably not doing the us so well, are we? We need to do that. So that's not overworking ourselves. 2 years ago, we cut back from being a 5-day-a-week business to a 4-day-a-week business and added on a night service. And that's just been incredible for us to give spaciousness in our life and also allow us to kind of tend to the extra things that our business needs us to tend to, but still remain balanced and have enough rest and rejuvenation time. I think like neither of us are naturally extroverts, but our job is quite extroverted. So then down solitude time is really important for us to be balanced. And we really want to do this kind of into old age, really. So then when we're making decisions of what will work for us now, but also there's an element of being like, can we sustain this when we're 60? And while we're not making decisions for that because we're not 60 yet, we're still kind of setting up a business that is possible to run long term and that doesn't burn us out. I think running a business together makes a huge difference. Like I know lots of staff have shared that they've worked for other businesses that is just, run by one person, and then the load that you need to carry is just so much bigger. Whereas we have very different skill sets, me and Daniel, and being able to run it together is just incredible. I don't know how I do it without him and vice versa. So that's amazing. Yeah.
So I love to hear this, intention towards longevity in a business, because hospitality is notorious for burning people out. At this stage, where does the balance lie between the business giving you energy and the business depleting you?
I think in a pretty good balance, actually. Over the years, we've been able to pay ourselves a little bit more decently, and that feels really good and really important to, know that we can earn an income from our business. And it's really important. We're putting in so much time and effort, but if you're kind of paying yourself under maybe what you're paying some of your staff because that's what you need to do as a business owner to get it off the ground, that's not a sustainable thing, and that doesn't feel good long term. So to be able to get our business to a point where we can do that is just awesome. I think the business gives us so much, and the community gives us so much, and the connection with people and the people that we've met through running this business, it's just beautiful. And I can't imagine not having those people in my life, and that energetic feedback and exchange and interaction is so nourishing to the soul that feeds a lot. And we just really love what we do, and I love working. So does Daniel. We love working hard, so that feels really good for our mental health and stuff like that. The 3 days really feels like 3 days off really feels like that created a really sustainable, good balance, and sort of allowed us to live in a spot where we're not living on overdrive, and that's made it very sustainable.
So good. I feel like we've talked about so many aspects of the business, but we haven't talked enough about the food and the drink, because that's at the heart of it all, and it is so amazing. I know when I first came to Nevedya and looked through the menu, it was quite overwhelming because you do a lot of different things. And instantly I was planning return visits because I knew I wouldn't be able to have everything. But tell me how you think about the menu. What are you trying to do with the offering?
It's changed a little bit right now because of where the world's at and the economic situation, so kind of pulled it back a little bit. And also I'm aware that I get creatively carried away and maybe add a few too many things sometimes, and really enjoy that process of creating new things, and that it gets a bit big. So over the years, often it's been a bit of I think we need to pull the menu back a little bit. It's got too much on it. So yeah, that's been a perhaps the opposite journey to many people, but a bit of a funny journey that needs to be my journey to make sure I don't get too creatively carried away, because I love it so much and I love creating new things and I love cooking and playing. So it's been a evolution, the menu and the drinks and what we offer. That's been a feedback process from what people want, and also been a kind of co-creation with staff often that are like, why don't you put this on, or why don't you put that on? Like when we opened, we wanted to always put a good cacao on the menu, but we didn't have one on, and at that point we had a staff called Dani working for us, and she was like, we need to put cacao on the menu. And then she was really into medicinal mushrooms and stuff like that, and we talked about that together and created the mushroom cacao elixir and our cacao menu, and also created that in conjunction with another amazing woman called Taj, who's a herbalist, and she blends these beautiful herbal blends that go into the cacao elixirs that we make that have different properties. Leela's barking in the background. Shh. So, yeah, and then I kind of didn't necessarily set out to have such a Indian heavy menu, but it sort of evolved that way because people really responded well to it. And we always wanted to put doses on the menu because they're just incredible. And I guess I always wanted to put items on the menu that are different and that aren't your run-of-the-mill cafe, restaurant fare, and that are a new experience for people. So when designing the menu, initially that was part of it, and doses went on the first menu that we designed, and then they were just really well received. Yeah, so that's sort of been like an evolution process where maybe I put something on and it doesn't work, and then put something on and it really works, and you're like, well, we can't ever take this off the menu. People love it. I think I also irritate some people because I do change the menu, and I really love changing the menu, and having the ability to continue to express myself creatively is really important for me. So that's something that I really enjoy, and I change it seasonally. And then people are like, no, bring back the pumpkin toast or whatever. Like, sorry, it's not coming back.
So, Shakti, I think it would be amazing to end this conversation with some advice that you could have for other people. I know that so many business owners find it really hard to stay true to, their vision when things get really tough. Do you have any advice for people who are just wondering, which steps to take, how to speak to their community, how to stay true to who they are in their business?
I think the first thing would be know your intention before you go into business. What are you wanting to set out to achieve? Like, what are you wanting to create? What are you wanting to transfer? And like, know that and really believe in it and feel passionate about it. And I think that there are many, many different types of hospitality businesses that are all valid, and most probably aren't coming from the perspective that we're coming from. I really believe in our perspective, as does Daniel, and that then carries me through, and I really want to make a small difference, which I don't think is necessarily the foundation of a lot of hospitality businesses, it's comes from a different perspective. I think also, though, people and community want to understand and know, at least that's been our experience, so communicate with them. Like when the price of olive oil went up and we tried to be like, okay, is there anywhere we can use a high quality oil that's different to olive oil, because that's what's really going up, and we tried and we're like, nah, it just actually compromises the taste. We communicate that with our customers, and the feedback that we've always received is that they want that, like that they thank us for that, that they say that's why we come, is because of that. So I guess maybe I don't have advice for all businesses that are running different things, but if you're running a business with ethics, I think stay true to it, know how to adapt and change what you cook. Right now, the dishes that are selling really popular for us are dal and rice and the khichdi that we make, which are all dal, rice-based things. So they're really affordable, but they're still really good. And I can still creatively express myself and change it up. So I think that it's like, if you're running an ethical business, then stay true to those ethics, communicate with your customers and your community, and learn how to adapt what you're doing to what is needed in the times.
I love that, Shakti. Really powerful. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I think just there's such a passion in me and Daniel for coming back in the West to a more like simplistic, reverential relationship with food. And I think we've complexified our relationship with food so much that there's so much information, like you should eat this, you shouldn't eat that, like this is good for you, this is bad for you, and it's just overwhelming. But I think we've kind of lost sight of just really almost our animal nature of like being in touch with the earth and being in touch with food and the pleasure of food and the respect of food, and not getting in our head about it, but actually being in our body about it. And I really advocate for a healthier relationship in general for humans with food, and that we kind of get out of all this complexity and all this intellectualization of it and all this eat goji berries, don't eat goji berries, whatever like the current fads or trends are, and just tune into our body and tune into the ancient sciences of food like Ayurveda or Chinese medicine and our digestion.
Regard the broccoli.
Absolutely.
I think we could all do with a bit of broccoli staring, or
chop a cabbage up and look at the pattern inside it. It's incredible. Yeah, see the stars in the apple, all of that. Absolutely, Dani.
Totally. Shakti, absolutely a pleasure to speak to you and feel the energy that you put into the business and everything else that you do. Thank you so much thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Dani. Thank you for the opportunity and for recognising and asking these deep, complex questions.
Appreciate it.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.